Managers, what is the silliest reason you have had an employee call in sick? They're superstitious and refuse to work on any Friday that falls on the 13th because something bad always happens to them. The same person also once told me he cut his hand on a banana. I cut my hand on a slice of bread once, so the banana thing I kind of relate to. A friend of mine, when he was in his early 20s, called in drunk. Friend, I can't come in, I'm a pretty drunk. Boss, oh, you're sick and can't come in? Friend, nah, I'm just drunk. Can't make it. Boss, no, you're sick, right? Friend, nah man, I'm just kinda drunk. Boss, okay, I'm putting you down as sick. Get better soon. At least you could tell he wasn't faking. Not really sick, but I know you're not going to believe this. Some homeless man broke into my house last night and stole all of my pants. I will not be able to make it in today because I have to file a police report and have no pants to wear. Turned out he had gotten drunk and put all of his pants into the recycle for some reason. My sister's husband did have to use that excuse when a homeless person broke into their house and did actually steal most of his clothes, including all his suits and most of his underwear. Also made lunch out of BBQ sauce and Vienna sausages. When making her morning coffee, grounds got in her cup and then her creamer was bad. So because her coffee was all wrong, she couldn't come into work that day. Frickin' Mercury retrograde. I'm not a manager, but I'm a floor installer, and I run my own crew from time to time. We had this one guy who was constantly complaining about how broke he is and how he needs to work so badly, and yet he just didn't ever want to actually show up. Here's a selection of my favorite of his excuses. 1. There was a construction truck parked blocking his driveway. I thought, why not ask them to move? 2. Someone had allegedly been messing with him and slowly letting the air out of his tires. Clearly they couldn't possibly be leaking. They were only 5 years old. 3. Someone had broken into his vehicle under cover of night, removed the motor that operates the windows, and replaced it with a burnt out one on the driver's side. So now his window barely works. I mean, the car's only about 13 years old. Couldn't be wearing out by itself. We offered this dude a full-time job, with a guaranteed permanent position if he proves himself. He proved that he would rather come up with any reason to not work. I love this. I'm dealing with a similar one at my work. They were hired as perm before I joined. I hope you didn't offer this paranoid chap a job. I've got back pain because I fell off the back of a motorcycle. That's fine, mate. Come in when you're well. The doctor said it could be the motorcycle, or it could be my office chair. Okay, well, if we're waiting on the results from the blood test, you're taking a blood test to see if your back pain is from sitting in an old chair or failing off a motorcycle? Yes. He just kept going until it was obvious he was lying. This doesn't count because I ended up going in. Not proud of it, but my boss and I got a hearty laugh. I was a landscaper back in my later teens. I had gotten drunk the night before with my buddies because the forecast said tons of rain in the morning. I get home and pass out. Get a phone call in the morning from my boss asking where I was. Nearly comatose, I say, "It's raining, isn't it?" He laughs and says, "Get to work." I told him my night and my thought process. He laughed even harder. It was a good day with a hangover as well. The good old tomorrow's gonna be a rain day anyway. I'm getting wasted issue. I've worked construction for my entire career, and every time I decide to drink because it's supposed to rain the next day, it ends up being a work day. It's a lesson you learn when you're young, haha. Was a nighttime manager for a fast food place. During my first week, I had one of my people that helped close call in 3 times one night to call off. Call number 1. Me. Hello? Girl. Hey, I can't come in tonight. I don't think I have a ride in. Me. Her sister works the same shift and is able to drive the car and is due to work that night too, so is your sister not coming in either? Girl. Yes, but I can't. Me. Okay, no problem, we'll make it work. Call 2. Literally an hour later. Me. Hello? Girl. Hey, I can't come in tonight. I can't find any pants to wear with my uniform. Starts sobbing loudly into the phone. Me. It's okay, don't worry about it. Girl. Screams at the top of her lungs, I just want to find my pants. Call 3. About 3 hours into shift and her sister is there working. Me. Hello? Girl. Hey, I forgot to call to say I can't make it in. Me. Okay, well your shift started 3 hours ago, but it's okay, we aren't busy. Girl, I swear I'll make it up to you. Maybe we can go get a drink after you get out tonight. Me. Thinking what the frick is going on here? No, that's okay, just make sure it doesn't become a habit. Girl, it won't. Speaking with the girl's sister, I found out she had gone out with friends and was already at the bar. After we closed, I decided to go to the bar I know she frequents. As soon as I walk in, she greets me, says she is buying me a beer and said she was sorry she didn't show up. She was gone. The bartender asked if I was there to pick her up and take her home, because if not he was going to call someone else to take her. I took her home, and as soon as we pulled in her driveway she freaks out, gets out of the car, runs up to her front door and can't get it open. The girl's mom answers the frantic pounding and sees me standing there. The mom, you have got to be kidding me. Again. Apparently this happened a lot with the last nighttime manager, but they would go back to his place and he would sleep with her, and in exchange he would fudge her hours to make it look like she was working. Needless to say, she ended up fired, and the sister left due to going off to college. Well, that was a wild ride. Me, as an employee, called into the office and had to explain that I would be very late. A flock of starlings had gotten into a patch of berries and shat all over my car. It was bad enough I had to wash the windshield before I could drive. My boss, probably thinking bulls, nope, bird crap, drives to my house and sees me scrubbing the windows, stops, pauses, laughs hysterically, then drives away. I didn't have time to wash the car until later that day. It was horrible. I once called in because I went too hard on leg day, and I never call sick unless if I am booked off. My boss didn't believe me and told me to come into work, which I did. I was 2 hours late. The boss and the CEO saw me waddling 5 centimeters at a time and both told me to go home. I refused because I already put in all the effort to get there. Not gonna waste it. Interestingly, I became a manager and I'm lucky to not have gotten any silly reasons. That amount of pain is a danger sign. Happened to me once after going really hard on leg day, ended up having rhabdomyolysis. Called in frisky, obligatory, not a manager. He was trying for a baby. Couple was deemed infertile, going through all sorts of treatments and therapies. Dude calls into the manager and says his wife is ready. Manager told him to take the day off. A few months later they confirmed conception past 12 weeks. It was very exciting, but also strange. A happy bizarre story. Had an employee call in sick, saying it was the flu. An hour later, he checked in at George Webb, Milwaukee restaurant chain, on Facebook, and posted a photo of himself standing in a line outside of the restaurant that was 3 or 4 blocks long, waiting for a free hamburger that the restaurant was giving away because the Milwaukee Brewers won 12 games in a row. Another good reason never to connect to co-workers on social media while you're still working there. It's a policy I've kept and it has always served me well. Some of my favorites when I was a manager. I can't come in today cause it's too windy and I can't drive my car. I can't come in today because my cell phone broke and I need to go buy a new one. Calling from my friend's phone. I can't come in because I missed the bus and being an hour late won't be worth the money I'd make being there on time. I can't come in today because my work pants ripped and I don't have any other pairs. You can just wear normal pants today. No, that wouldn't be professional and fair to you. I can't come in today because my work pants ripped and I don't have any other pairs. You can just wear normal pants today. No, that wouldn't be professional and fair to you. LOL, this is my favorite one by a long shot. I used to work at a trampoline park and we had one guy who was super greedy when taking parties. He called the store one day and would only speak to me since I was his favorite manager. He asked if there were any parties assigned to him and I said no. He then replied with, "I'm not coming in, I don't feel too good." I told my general manager and he said bulls and wrote him up for it. Mine is about a girl who called in sick with a cold and sore throat. On their return to work I asked if it had been started or caused by work, expecting them to say no. Instead they said yes. Surprised I asked them to explain. Well, I was making a pot noodle in the kitchen, and the window was open. So as I was opened the sachet of powder, the wind blew through the window and all the power went down my throat. Hence my cold and sore throat. Phew. Sounds like all she needed was a drink of water, lol. Had an employee that had her mother call out for her because she had a little too much to drink on her birthday. Real story. The daughter was in county lockup for possession. Found her mugshot online. Once had a guy's dad call in when I was team lead on a service desk. Said he wasn't feeling well. We got curious. Turned out he was arrested drunk, threatening his ex-wife with a pet bat. I had a subordinate once call in sick because he accidentally closed his recliner on his cat and apparently chopped its tail off. The next evening, I asked him what his cat's name was and he couldn't answer. My mom actually did this once. Not the tail part but the part where she started closing her fancy electric lift recliner and realized the cat was inside when he started yelling. He was mostly okay but it was scary. Called in sick. We generally don't ask why for the first 2 weeks. After 2 weeks we have to involve company doctor. Company doctor reported back. Breast enlargement. We were told by HR not to make a fuss even though it was not a good reason to call in sick. There was no previous history. It was me. I phoned work to tell them I wouldn't be in because I had locked myself in my house. I had just moved house that weekend. Didn't yet have a key for the back door. Locked the front door Sunday evening from the inside and went to bed. Woke up Monday morning, turned the key in the lock and it just sheared off, leaving the door locked from the inside with remains of the key in the hole. Had to ring up the letting agent and get them to come let me out with their spare key. Was 4 hours late to work. There was much pee taking when I got to work. I once just sent a photo to my boss of my hand holding the doorknob from inside the apartment. Wasn't about to take the fire escape down. The super didn't have a spare key, but I was able to slide it under the door so they could unlock me from the outside. Was a fun morning. Wish I knew it would happen so I could have slowed down. I had someone call off because their electricity was out and she couldn't blow her hair dry. I told her to drive with her windows down and hung up. Had to fire her a few weeks later as she got arrested for beating up the new girlfriend of one of her baby daddies. Beating up the new girlfriend of one of her baby daddies. Bro, we're talking a real social engineer here. Had a lady call in and say she couldn't come into work because everything was wrong. I asked her to elaborate. She said Venus was retrograde with Mercury and because she is a Capricorn she is vulnerable and can't come into work as everything is terrible. I'm like, you are trying to call off work because your horoscope is wrong. She screamed, OMG, I knew you wouldn't understand. You are such an Raz, and slammed the phone on me. She didn't last long. Putting aside the horoscope nonsense, that's such a stupid thing to call in at the last minute. We know what the path of the planets is, so it's surely something you can predict rather than something that will jump up on you at the last second. I'm a manager, but my own boss calls in sick so frequently that we don't even ask why anymore. Oh, Devin is sick. Shocker. In the last 2 months he's had the chicken pox and like 3 colds. The kicker is that when I try to call out, happened once. I had a bad fever. He guilts me into working. He does the same to my employees. I also have an employee who goes home early all the time, once a week or so, because her daughter starts fights at school. So either she's lying or her daughter is a very violent 4-year-old and someone should be concerned. I have this employee who is late just about every day, other than your typical excuses. So far, her house has burned down twice. I saw one in my LinkedIn feed where a guy cancelled all his meetings for a day because he'd had a dream that there would be a car crash on the motorway that day. Imagine getting that call, say you're not coming in because there's been a crash. Where? Was anyone hurt? What did you mean there's not actually been one? A dream. Of course there wasn't a crash. He stayed home. Not a manager, but a co-worker once called out with the following excuses. He claimed he had gastrointestinal fever. He claimed a kidney stone ricocheted off his spleen. He claimed his car would only ever start on the 3rd try. Edit. Formatting. Then try 3 times. Obligatory, not a manager, but going to tell on myself for a silly out sick reason. I once had to call out sick because my mother brought home a puppy, set it on my lap where he fell asleep, and then left to go out shopping and I didn't know when she'd be back. I wasn't really a dog person and I was the only one home, and this was a brand new animal in the house that I had to keep out of things, so I called in because I had a puppy asleep on my lap. My boss was less than thrilled that was my reason, but the way I saw it I had little other choice. The dog didn't have a crate or anywhere I'd feel safe leaving him for 5 minutes, let alone 5 hours. Still kept my job and got to explain the situation better when I went in the next day. The boss was initially angry on the phone, but with more context and a chat with his wife, and he understood a bit better. Bonus icing on the crappy cake to that day, the puppy woke up at some point and started making a low grumbly noise. I didn't know what he was doing, so I brought him over to my bed to pet him and check him over, make sure he was okay. He needed to pee, so he pee on my bed. Frick's sakes. Good job, you managed to get the same outcome by being there that you would have gotten if you had left the puppy alone. Not a manager, but a team lead. Problem I have is getting too much info from those calling in sick. Really just emails or IMs, no one calls anymore. At my company you're not required to disclose the reason for taking the time, as long as you have it. Can't tell you how many times people start describing their effed up medical problems and I'm just thinking, please stop. I don't need to know. The vast majority are from our folks in our remote center in India. Some examples. I have an open sore on my face. Some sort of fungus. My throat is swollen and I'm coughing up pus. I'm having uncontrollable bowel movements. I do this because I want them to believe me when I say I'm sick. It's a bad habit I got from retail, because they always question you. I used the all food poisoning call-in reason. Real reason was I had an interview at a different company. What I didn't know was 3 other co-workers had interviews at different companies on the same day. 2 of them also had food poisoning and one was my kid got sick. Quite hilarious the next day when our boss asked what or where we ate. All named 3 different foods, 3 different places. I'm sure he knew something was up as he just laughed at us. I almost never get sick and even then rarely call out. I called out sick to go to an interview. I just said flu-like symptoms. A few weeks later, bam, 2-week notice. I don't think my boss put 2 and 2 together. Every time someone calls out sick I think of them interviewing for another job. A girl who had worked at my store a few years ago returned when we needed new cashiers. After just a handful of weeks working with us, doing a great job and being very friendly I might add, she started calling in last week saying she couldn't get to work because her car was broken down and wouldn't be fixed until, conveniently, the hour after her shift would have ended. She did this for 2 shifts in a row. For the 3rd attempt, the store manager offered to drive the girl to work. The store manager rarely gets days off and often has to come in and pick up everybody's slack, and she was offering to go out of her way to drive this girl to work. Of course, the girl never responded to that offer and we haven't heard from her, now a week later. Not actually a silly reason to work, but still it's kind of related. I work at a small fast food restaurant and it has very few staff. Way too few if you ask me. I cover a lot of shifts for my boss, like sometimes twice a week. I called in sick one day, and no one could cover my shift. My boss managed to convince one of my co-workers to cover 1/3 of my shift. He then told me I owe him one. Frick off, mate. You owe me way more than I owe you. He wanted to take paid leave for a Friday. I knew his favorite band was in town that Friday, and their concert would start right around the time work was set to get out. Instead I put him on 24 hours sick time, basically paid time off, and the company only starts tracking it if it exceeds 24 hours, and told him to enjoy the concert. You forgot to tell him you owe me one. My team colleague called in sick because he missed his train. He would have come an hour late, but I would have needed him that day. Former manager. A guy called in and said that he already had started his laundry process and forgot that he needed to be at work. He wondered if it could be considered a sick day. A girl called in once because she had gotten back from vacation on Saturday and she needed another day to recover. It was Monday. She was PRN and made her own schedule. She would also ask if she could come in a couple hours late. She worked as a tech in a hospital, so she would relieve someone else. I mean, I actually get it, but at the same time that's dumb as heck. I'm not a manager, but I did once have a weird reason for calling off. My car died right as I was pulling into my garage. My neighbor had to help me push it in the rest of the way. My girlfriend lent me her car to take to work. I drove down to the corner station to top off the tank. Her car died at the gas station. This was at about 9 PM on a Saturday. No rental place was open. No one I could call for a ride or borrow another car. Had to call off because I had no way of getting there. People thought I was calling off to get a 3-day weekend. Had a guy who lived within eyeshot of the business. You could look out the front door and see his house. He called in because his car wasn't working. At first we assumed that he was stuck somewhere with a broken car, but a few minutes later another employee pointed out that he was currently out front working on it. Still don't know if he just genuinely did not want to walk to work or he thought that a 3-minute walk was too far on foot. Maybe he just wanted to fix his broken car then and there, so he took the day off to do so. Not in a managing position, but man, I do love the stuff I hear in the office. During lunch break there was this overweight lady discussing something with a coworker. I didn't pick up the conversation, but all I heard was your hate and negativity against me are so painful I might throw up. Half an hour later I hear from her boss that she threw up in the restroom and had to go home since she doesn't feel safe right now. Dude then asked me if I know anything and I said no, as I didn't want to get involved. He further asks how often I have been sick in the last 3 years. Tell him I have no recorded sick days in the last 3 years and he just goes, wow, that must be hard. I am like, TF. Oh, I just had a good sick versus vacation day lie a few weeks ago. Not necessarily an excuse, but just a straight up lie. I run the rental department for a group of heavy duty truck dealerships, box trucks, 18-wheelers, dump trucks, school buses, etc. Which means I end up going to the DMV a lot to get tags for new rental trucks, etc. I also have two of my own separate shops from the rest of the dealership to work on my own trucks, and my own trucks only. One Monday, I had a young, new mechanic call into my shop manager saying he'd caught a stomach bug over the weekend, wasn't feeling much better yet, hadn't slept, etc. Shop manager tells me he's out. My guys do the best they can while down a mechanic. After lunch that day, I go to DMV to title and register 2 new trucks. Side note, in bigger towns, DMV will occasionally have separate windows for dealers and another for large fleets. Who do I see in the line for the general public registering his new crotch rocket? Guy who called in sick. I just called out his name quietly and waved, and told him I was glad he felt better. He used to call out sick every once in a while on a Monday. We usually assumed he was sleeping off a bender. Anyway, he hasn't called in sick on a Monday since then. I'm not manager, but have heard lots of excuses that have made me and co-workers and boss laugh quite often, or some are just super messed up in general, but this one so far has really taken the cake. We have a really religious cook that works with us. Not judging that part, but it's the relevant reason. One day, she found out that one of the other cooks is atheist and called out the next day saying she refuses to come back in because that cook is broken and needs to be fixed. Until she's fixed, she wants vacation pay. She's still not back but calls every day to ask if she's fixed yet. I had a co-worker who had some serious delusions of grandeur, but only when he was calling in sick. His name was Cash Jordan. Not really, but imagine something equally fun to say. He called in because he was expecting a super important call from the President of the United States, Bush at the time. He had to go advise the president on a matter of foreign affairs. He had to personally stop the Italian mafia from coming to the town. He busted up a drug smuggling operation. He claimed he was on his way to work and found out there was an ongoing shootout between the police and a Mexican cartel, so he went there to stop it. When he got out of his car, the cartel leader shouted, "It's Cash Jordan. Everybody stop shooting." A nuke was accidentally armed and he had to go input the codes to shut it down because no one else knew them. This apparently made him 14 minutes late for work. He was late because a rabid group of fangirls descended on him demanding autographs and he had to escape through a back route. A shipment from China containing poisoned baby formula was coming into town and he had to go make sure it was destroyed instead of ending up on supermarket shelves. He had to go tell some ambassador to make sure they weren't up to something shady. He had to go sign paperwork involving a border dispute. He had to go take photos with the Queen of England to improve her reputation. Mind you, these are all excuses that he gave to the bosses at a near minimum wage job, while calling in as an excuse for why he was late or not coming in. Eventually he got canned for 2 many tardies and absences. I think they only kept him around to see what crazy crap he'd come up with next. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.